Welcome back. I'm still working on some of my weaknesses, one of which is seeing and finding forced checkmates when I have them on the board. In this position, I knew I had an advantage. I had just forced my opponent to give up their queen for a rook and a knight, and I ended up picking up a pawn right here in the process. And here, my opponent is in trouble. They haven't moved or developed any of these pieces. My only problem is this weird looking pawn structure here, which isn't really going to be a problem because it gives me open lines for the rook and the queen, and this bishop is already out roaming around, preventing the rook from coming over. So I know I'm doing pretty well. My opponent, knowing that they're stuck, probably needs to move this pawn to get their bishop out somehow, and then afterward it'll have a space for their knight. They can't castle anymore because their king has already moved, but instead, I guess what they thought is that this pawn was preventing their knight from moving because they played c3. Perhaps hoping I would take and then they could get their knight out? I don't know. Or maybe they thought they were giving their king an escape route. The problem is this gives me a forced mate in 2, and I didn't see it. Pause the video if you want to take a look, or if you haven't seen it already. The move, of course, is playing my pawn to d3, which would block off those 2 squares and give me mate on the next move right here. What I played instead was queen to e3, and I really can't explain my thought processes on that other than I was aiming at this pawn, or perhaps hoping to get my rook over behind the queen to force a mate here, regardless of the rook. But I've got to learn to see these simple things, that these 2 squares can both be controlled by a pawn push. And if I play that, there's nothing they can do. If they bring the rook, that's checkmate right there. If they play anything else, then that's checkmate right there. So I don't know how else to work on this other than to continue going through these positions that I've missed. And this is one of them. If it helps you, I hope so. Or if you have any tips for me, that would be great. I'm going to keep practicing. I'm going to keep working and reinforcing these. That's one of the reasons I make these videos. I watch my own videos, by the way, and see these things again. And I think that helps me to reinforce what I've been missing. Thank you so much for your support.